Um, Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Experience Team retro video. Today is Thursday, December 2nd. We're going to talk about what went well, things to improve on, and some action items. And up first, I have the first thing that went well. So I feel like the data attribute work for Google Analytics has kind of been going well. We've been flying through a lot of issues on that. At the beginning of this week, we didn't have like any of those issues done. I linked in Epic where there's 20 or 30 issues, and now we're like in the last handful of issues. So great job to everyone, Javi, Mateo, John, Barker, and our pal Dennis. Yeah, I feel good about it. And next is Tina.
Yeah, things that went well. I'm enjoying the collaboration between design and the nearshore team, specifically on the work on transitioning the solutions pages. I'm looking at you, John and Miguel, and I just added a little reminder to those who haven't, just to tag me in those MR reviews. I'm pretty reasonable with my feedback. Miguel has a point there.
Yep. I think that we have made great progress, although we have that problem with the simultaneous work we are doing with Slippers. But I think that collaboration will enable us to do that job of documenting and getting on the same track. And yeah, and things to improve on. I have that I think that I can improve the guidance on the migration and the collaboration that I was talking about. I think it will greatly benefit that thing, and that's it. Next is Tina again.
Yeah, things to improve on. I had a question about who triages our issues. Javi here wrote that it's a mix of Lauren and Nathan. I don't know if you want to vocalize what you have here. No, okay. And so, I was wondering, when creating issues, there's the triage label. Should we assign an engineer or not? Sometimes we're kind of unsure if it doesn't get assigned to an engineer, will it get lost? So maybe something to improve on is to just understand that process team-wide.
I would just want to, I was going to add just a quick one for that one. It's just, I think maybe this should be something that we say we do before our sprint planning meeting, is to just go through that. I don't know if there is a right person for us to be doing this right now. So I would just say that, like, in the sprint planning, like, because we have like the board set up, is just like keep an eye on that like triage section of it and see if there's anything that makes sense for us to bring up. I know that we have like within the sprint planning, there's the unassigned section. So maybe like pulling things in there would probably make sense from the triage.
I think I've got the next point, which is actually a stolen point Barker mentioned earlier today. With troubles we've all had troubles kind of setting up repos lately, and we're using and collaborating with more and more teams like docs and customers, and setting up their repositories. So yeah, is there a way that we can start thinking about containerizing or set up virtual machines or something that will help it so that we have different dependencies for different projects and those aren't conflicting with each other? But yeah, very rhetorical, but it was a good point that Barker brought up. So I added it into things to improve on, to start thinking about. And Javi has the next one.
So I have kind of another, like a big one. It's how do we want to set up repo infrastructure for a new repository? I also linked in within our document, I inserted the handbook page for the values, specifically the short toes sub value. Just because we have a lot of fresh eyes in the team and people see things that other people don't. And so I would encourage team members to just make an MR for things that they think could just be improved, especially if it makes sense and it works with everything else. I would also encourage people to straight up also just make empty MRs with a new branch that has the same things as your main branch, but it's just like, I want to do this. And like that creates sort of like a, call to action for like what the future would look like. The most pressing one in this like kind of super hypothetical example that I think is very prevalent for the work that we do day to day is UI documentation, and I'm specifically calling out Storybook. I think that we've gone through the process of redoing our UI stuff kind of a lot. I think for the team members who have been here for like over a year plus, we've redone things maybe like, I don't know, it feels like we've remade components like over and over again. And so I want to make sure that we are taking our learnings from past UI building experiences. And so I propose that we have a retro for Slippers v0 so that we can actually take forward things that we learned from our past mistakes and make sure that we are actively working to prevent them in the future as best we can within the constraints that we have, you know, with all of the things that are flying in and out. And I think that will help with like making sure that we're not just in this process of, you know, rebuilding things over and over again, which is not fun.
Just to add on to that, because when you mentioned Storybook, I was like, wait, I thought we weren't using Storybook anymore. And maybe we are, and I'm just confused. But have we decided on a single source of truth yet for our like design development and documentation? Kind of the way that like Pajamas has a public-facing site with all that like in one. Have we decided on that? I feel like we've talked about it a lot, but I don't remember if we ever came to a decision. And maybe this is something to put in that retro, but thought I'd just throw it out there.
We talked about it briefly in our last meeting, but yeah, I guess, oh, Tina is writing in that. Tina, do you want to go?
Sure. Just from our sprint release, we talked a little bit about this and the UI to code meeting last week. Nathan, I believe, has rebuilt it or is in the process of rebuilding Storybook as it was in a new repository. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understand.
Yes, he was building a new Storybook and he has a couple of components already added to that one.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think having a retro is kind of a good idea because going forward, as if we're kind of starting fresh, which our team loves to do, we can build this Slippers repository or this Storybook version to be what everyone can use as they're migrating pages over.
Yeah, last point. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with like rebuilding because I think like it's actually kind of a good thing because it's the exercise of like doing things, learning from it, and then like rebuilding it makes like the thing that we make afterwards better because we have all of this context of like past experience to base our stuff on. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just like we should stabilize at some point.
Right, and in the case of the buyer's experience repository, I think it's necessary anyway, because I don't think we can import directly the components that we are using in the repo and use them on the view code. So either way, we have to create the new components, so better document them on the Storybook from the beginning.
So I'll add an action item for myself to see. I'm going to wait and see how sprint planning looks. If we have another kind of wild sprint, we don't have time for a retro, but hopefully next sprint, I can put something on the calendar for everyone to do a Slippers retro. Yeah, and I think Daniel's got the next point.
Yeah, during the coding process, some new merge requests arrived. So we should double check and make sure the things you're doing doesn't affect, crash or break something with in relation with the other new releases. So I think there is something that we can improve. It's an improvement area.
Nice.
I'm going to follow up there on that one. There's a MR we deployed in the new buyer experience repo, and there's what Tyler's saying, nasty silent bug in the review app where even if the build fails, it'll still show what like the past cache was. And therefore, when it actually got deployed, then we noticed all the stuff was broken. So we found a bug and we're going to fix it.
Cool. Okay, with that, I think that's everyone. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.